6 and the older iPad mini 5, and wanted to kind of do a comparison and talk about different features and do some drawing to kind of start testing the iPad mini. Of course, it's day one, September 24th. I just went and picked it up myself a few hours ago, and I tried to do a stream before with my MacBook showing the screen, but it wasn't going so well, so I'm doing this again on my phone just to have a smoother experience for everyone. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer them and just go through some of the kind of differences and new features, maybe some good stuff, some bad stuff, whatever I experienced from the 1 or 2 hours I've used it so far. From there, I'm gonna definitely take my experience and do a video like a first 24 hours or something like that, and then go into my review, my proper review. So yeah, gonna get started again with another live stream. Let me see if I could pull up chat as well. And I really want to get a proper live streaming setup for doing different drawings. Whoops. I really want to get a proper live streaming setup so that I can do videos like this one and other drawing related videos a little bit better. I think it would take a lot of the pressure off of like actually making a full video if I could kind of go live and talk about my thoughts and do different things like that. So as you can see, I have the two minis here. Let me get this out of the way. And one thing that I noticed was the bezels seem actually thicker on the left and right side if you're holding it in this vertical position for the Mini 6, which is interesting. They seem slightly smaller on the Mini 5. You do get a kind of, larger screen, slightly larger. Let me see if I could bring up like an empty canvas or a white source like this. So as you can see, you have slightly larger screen, especially at the bottom where this chin with the power and not the power, the home button would be. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk about any differences or just whatever I could think of since opening up the Mini 5 a few hours ago. But like I was saying, you have a slightly smaller body, but thicker bezels on the left and right. And overall, just you can see the comparison here between the two devices. So Mini 5 on the left and Mini 6 on the right. And I was saying in the previous stream that the Mini always felt like half of the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. It felt like if you were multitasking with two different apps, the Mini's screen size and the way it feels is like half of the screen of the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And that's an interesting way to think about it. It gives you some perspective if you're still kind of considering it, if you're not sure, and you have experience with that larger iPad, then at least that gives you some perspective, and you might not need to go test it out necessarily. But if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them, do some drawing and some testing while live streaming. So let's get started. And I guess I'll put the Mini 5 away for now. I don't know. If anyone has any questions, I will put them side by side again. It is slightly larger. I'm sure that Apple says it's, 10, 15, 20% larger or whatever, but I always find that increases in size like that sound good on paper, but when it actually comes to physically holding the two next to each other, 20% is not that much of an increase. If you already had a large screen, if you're saying that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro has 20% more screen, it might make a bigger difference, but with an already small screen, it's not going to make too much of a noticeable difference. And you also have those rounded corners now on the Mini 6, so maybe it gives a little bit of a impression that it's larger without actually being too much larger. And like I said, the bezels, I was actually now comparing them. These you have a more symmetrical look here, but the left and right bezels when holding it in a vertical position on the Mini 5 seem to be smaller. But this screen does give you, it's a 500 nits max brightness, which I don't know what the Mini 5 was, but you know, I'm assuming the screen is going to be a little bit better on this one, being 3 years, 2 or 3 years, I guess 2 years newer of a screen. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. But I think the iPad screen, they've always been very good, the iPhone and iPad screens, and they try to sell new technology, but the base that you could get on even the cheapest iPad tends to be pretty good, so we're already working with a nice screen. Oh, the Mini 5 also has 500 nit brightness, then you're probably dealing with a very similar screen if you have a Mini 5. But the body is different. One thing that I noticed is you have this Touch ID power button, and it's different than the iPad Pro with Face ID and all. Turning on and off the Mini requires, I think, pressing the power button and the volume button at the same time, and just had different things that I wasn't used to when I first opened it out of the box. I haven't had time to try out the iPad Air 4, unfortunately. You know, if I had the opportunity to, I would love to, but I think it's more complicated than just saying which device. If you have another drawing device, if you already have an iPad, if you have a Wacom or an XP pen or something like that, then maybe a Mini would be a nice complement for when you go on the go. But if you have absolutely no device for drawing, then the iPad Air 4 is probably a better overall device for using at home and on the go, and a little bit more screen real estate always is a nice option to have. And that's one conversation that we had in the previous live stream was if you have the middle-sized iPad, you can do a lot more things, it's a lot more comfortable. But if you have the 12.9-inch iPad, then the Mini becomes a much more appealing package for when you go on like public transportation or when you're out of the house. Yeah, no problem. Feel free to ask any questions you might have. And in the end, the drawing experience is pretty much the same across all your iPads. Obviously, you have Apple Pencil 1 and Apple Pencil 2, and you have some laminated and non-laminated screens, which might change the experience slightly. But I find that the Mini has the same exact drawing experience as the iPad Pro 12.9, just in a much smaller package. And then, of course, you have some different processors and different things like that. But for 2D drawing on lighter apps like this one, Painter, Procreate, even Clip Studio Paint, it tends to be very smooth even with an older iPad. So the difference really for me has been the screen size itself, the physical dimensions of it. And one thing that I did mention is because you have no parallax on the Apple Pencil, so if you draw something on the very corner around here on, say, a Wacom pen tablet, sometimes you have a drift between the cursor and the actual tip of the pen, but the iPad is very accurate, and so even if you have a smaller device like this, it's very easy with digital art to zoom in, add some fine details, and then zoom out, and kind of with a larger iPad you could get a bigger view of what you have, but it's not always necessary depending on your workflow. I mean, it seems like the same response, like the same responsiveness for the Apple Pencil. I really can't tell the difference between the Apple Pencil 2 and the Apple Pencil 1, like, other than this touch button, which is convenient for a smaller device like this, but as far as like its accuracy or latency, I haven't really experienced much of a difference, and even on the higher refresh screens, I just can't really tell when I'm actually working. So there might not be much of an effect. And I think it's a testament just to how good the original was. I don't have too much experience with animation. I think the processor being better could help a little bit with animation. It just depends on how, uh, what kind of work you want to do. If it's something very complex, you might want a larger screen. I think once you start adding like a timeline here and layers and different things, it might get more complicated. And a larger iPad might do you better. But if you want something to do your rough draft while you're on the go, it might be good. You can get a cursor, but the cursor only appears when you're actually physically engaging it by pressing on the screen. Other devices like Wacom Styli, when you're hovering, you still get a little cursor dot. And it can be helpful. I enjoyed that when I was using Wacom tablets, but I've kind of gotten used to the way that the Apple Pencil works. Yeah, no problem. And like I said, I don't have too much experience with animation, so it's hard for me to give a good answer, but I'm assuming that the UI elements, I guess certain apps, especially for mobile, you might be able to hide it. If you have a larger iPad and you want to take this, one of the nice things is you could send over your files with AirDrop or something else, so it's a nice tool to have for on the go. Working at home, I was definitely very fond of using the iPad mini 5 for drawing, even in home, in the office. But you do have that option if you have a larger iPad. But even like this, Painter doesn't have access to the that touch button, it seems like, so kind of a case-by-case basis with things like that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to try to help and answer those questions, and it will definitely help me decide what I want to talk about for the actual review and other videos that I do on the Mini 6. Between Procreate and Art Studio Pro, I definitely prefer Art Studio Pro. It's just from style. I know there's a lot of people that enjoy Procreate. I just feel very constrained to Procreate, even with the tools that I've created. I have several custom brushes that are available online, and it's just never to my liking. This Painter is a nice alternative for me for a lighter, more mobile-focused drawing app. But Art Studio Pro is very powerful and has a lot more features that I enjoy, especially custom keyboard shortcuts. So being able to use the keyboard shortcuts I've used for years on other software like Photoshop and Paint Tool SAI, it really comes in handy when you can input those when you can input those yourself versus with Procreate, they're baked in and you can't change their keyboard shortcuts at the moment. I'm sure one day that'll change. If it does, then it'll make using Procreate a lot easier. But when I'm going to definitely be using this controller that I've talked about in the past. This, you can't like customize each button. You need to have the app itself have the functionality to add custom keyboard shortcuts, and without that it's kind of useless. So in Procreate or different apps that don't let you customize shortcuts, I can't use that controller. Or even just having a more standard, if they had different options like a Photoshop style keyboard shortcut package. The keyboard shortcuts on Procreate are bizarre, and it's kind of confusing that it's not so industry standard. Clip Studio Paint is one of the best softwares available for iPad and PC, Mac. As far as drawing goes, it's fully featured. You can do anything from animation to comics, and I really like the brush engine. Wait, the brush engine for Clip Studio Paint is amazing, and I've been able to recreate a lot of the brushes that I used in Paint Tool Sai. So when it comes to doing like animated illustrations and the style that I do it, I feel like there's basically no alternative. Clip Studio Paint would be nice, but it's a lot harder to use, especially on iPad. So I've kind of defaulted back to Clip Studio Paint for my main work. Yeah, I mean, I use Clip Studio Paint on the Mini 5 quite a bit, and it was nice. You do have nice touch gestures and other shortcuts available. With a keyboard, it's obviously going to be the best it could be. But on all iPads, it's been one of the best experiences, and having that desktop grade software, I think that's one of the things that still holds the iPad back in a lot of ways, is you don't have software that is equivalent to Photoshop or uh, you know, animation software, drawing software that are used by professionals. But Clip Studio Paint is the exact same software as it is on desktop, and you get to use it, untethered, just the exact same iPad that you would use for watching Netflix or anything you could use to do professional drawings. And the technology has come a long way. I tried to draw on different tablets many, many years ago. Using Clip Studio Paint on the Mini 5 crashes. I've never had it crash on the Mini 5. Clip Studio Paint has been very stable for me, and I use an A4 size canvas with 350 DPI and more than 60 layers, often 100 layers, and don't have any issues with it. I think I'm going to go ahead and try out a different software. We'll open up Art Studio Pro. I was doing something on here in a previous live stream. And I do really like Art Studio Pro's kind of basic pencil brushes for sketching. They have this really nice, like, soft to light, and the pen pressure just feels great with the Apple Pencil. It feels a lot like Clip Studio, and it feels a lot like Paint Tool SI. And Art Studio Pro is an app that I really want to keep my eyes on. I made a review video about it, and I'm sure it's just going to continue to get better. Yeah, I'll go ahead and open up Procreate really quick. Let's see, I forget how, like custom 4K canvas. So it looks like a 4K canvas on the Mini 6 gives 34 layers. So very similar to the Mini 5. But sometimes Procreate needs an update before, because we have a new iPad OS out, and with new releases, sometimes the software takes some time to kind of get some benefit from new hardware. Yeah, my iPad Mini 5 is still going strong. I got it day one, just like the Mini 6 here, and I've absolutely loved the experience with it. There are some benefits to having like USB-C and this kind of form factor changes, but I think the Mini 5 is still a viable option depending on your workflow. And it's going to be a cheaper alternative, of course, now that the Mini 6 is out. You could probably get a great deal on the Mini 5. And I'm sure that, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that there's not going to be another Mini for quite some time. And in fact, this might be the last Mini, because the next time Apple goes to do something of this size, it might be some kind of like crossover with a phone or some other form factor. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last traditional style Mini that we have. But it's a nice change because they were using that Mini 5, like the Mini, I guess 2 through 5 were the same body and all, maybe even from the first generation, very similar bodies. Yeah, I think because now we have the A15 chip, I believe, and we might get more access to uh, layers on Procreate with an update. I'm not sure if someone else has a A15 chip in one of their iPads and they can double check the layer limit. You should probably get similar performance. So I think 64 gigs is a tough option. Like, it's kind of disappointing that Apple still offers that when I'm sure they could give you 128 standard, 64 gigs is just probably going to be too uncomfortable for more than just a sketchbook. The way that I would use 64 gigs on the Mini 6, or I guess technically even the Mini 5, is if you were using it as a sketchbook and you're constantly offloading your drawings. Let's say you had the OS, Clip Studio Paint, Procreate, and a few other drawing apps, and you drew with fairly large sized files and you're recording time lapses and all that. You could run through that 64 gigs pretty quickly. And if you weren't say, sending your drawings off to another app, another computer, things like that, and wiping them from your Mini, you're going to be running out of space very quickly. The thing that's very nice about the Mini 6 is that with the USB-C port and Apple's Files app, just plugging in some USB drive is going to allow you to offload those or have a backup very quickly. The Mini 5 with the Lightning port was a huge pain to connect a special adapter or a special USB drive just to get those files off of there. So the one thing about the 64 gig option with the Mini 6 versus the Mini 5 is that you're going to have a lot easier time backing up and clearing those files away. For games, especially, games take up quite a bit of room. So I would say that 64 gigs is probably not enough. It's really a shame that Apple doesn't offer something in between. Yeah, I mean, the USB-C is a huge deal for many creators, I think, just to have one cable or to back up things or just have connective, like a connectivity for different devices. I could definitely use this for photography. The larger iPads would be difficult to have when you're out in the field, but you can maybe put this even on top of your camera with like some hot shoe adapter and get a really nice view of the photos that you're taking and get it straight into Lightroom on the Mini. Yeah, it was unfortunate that we had that like design and everything with the Mini 5 because I feel like this could have been what the Mini 5 the Mini 6 could have been what the Mini 5 was, or other way around. The Mini 5 could have been what the Mini 6 is. I don't really play games, so maybe what you're saying might be true. I mean, I'm assuming that a larger, more intense game would take up maybe like 10 gigs or something between updates and everything else, so you can only fit a few of them. And if you want to do drawing as well, I think you're going to find yourself within like 3 to 6 months really trying to vie for space. I've never experienced anything with battery bulging. I don't have my iPad plugged in 24 hours, but I'd assume it's probably okay because if you go to like cafes and restaurants, they often have an iPad just plugged right into the wall as a cash register or something. I haven't really done it myself, but I would assume that Apple products are going to be a little bit better about that than maybe some cheaper products plugged in 24/7. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by again. I hope this stream is just a little bit better. I really do want to get some proper streaming equipment and all of it. Haven't had the time. It's really unfortunate that I couldn't get the actual screen mirrored onto a Windows PC. That would have made things a lot easier. But if anyone has any questions, definitely feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to help you out with that. Another thing that someone asked me on the previous stream was if I'm going to get a cover or a case for it. I really do want to get the Smart Folio, as it seemed like at least on the Mini 5 it provided a nice drawing angle and some protection for the screen and all, but it wasn't available today, so I'll have to get that some other time. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. I still find that I have quite a bit of trouble with complex poses like this. Oops, that's not it. That's the one thing about Art Studio Pro that always trips me up. Trying to confirm something isn't always just canceling out of it. Like making a selection, you need to confirm it sometimes, or different things like that have tripped me up on Art Studio Pro quite a bit. And also feel free to ask any questions about art or drawing. Doesn't have to be about the mini necessarily. But so far, it feels a lot like the Mini 5. We'll have to see about performance, like getting into some intense workloads of multiple layers and larger canvases, but the drawing experience feels pretty similar. I was talking about it either earlier in a previous stream that when you're drawing, you tend to cover up some of the bezels, so I never really minded having the larger bezels on the left and right side. You know, you tend to draw in the middle of the screen and you get to move around your canvas, and so in that regard it feels very similar to the Mini 5. And thank you so much again for joining us in the stream. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll love to answer to the best of my ability. Has anyone else watching reserved a mini or gotten their hands on it, on the mini sticks? I thought some of the new colors were pretty interesting, and also surprised that they lost the like silver kind of white classic option that they've had for a long time. I guess the mini, I mean, it's a very interesting kind of place in the iPad lineup that you have a lot of just people, random like users that want it for reading books or watching YouTube or whatever. And you do have some professional people that want a more portable option for art or blogging, whatever kind of thing that you want to do professionally. And it always seemed like a very interesting position between the other iPads. Like not the most high end, but definitely has some high end users and a lot of like lower end users. I was very happy when the Mini 5 got access to the Apple Pencil, and it's been a very enjoyable experience since then. And let me know also if you're enjoying the stream. It's something I'd really like to try to do more frequently and with a nice like camera setup and everything. Just gotta find some time to set it all up and get it working. I was trying to do it just the bare minimum to get a nice setup over the last few days, and knowing that the Mini 6 was coming out, I was trying to rush it, but it didn't work out. We tested it really quick. We opened up a canvas, a 4K canvas, and it had like 34 layers, I believe, which is the same as what someone else reported for the Mini 5. I'm not a heavy Procreate user, but also oftentimes when something first comes out, when a new iPad comes out, Procreate needs an update to really take advantage of the hardware. Oh, thank you so much. Just trying to get something done. Maybe I can use this for the like first impressions video. It's always hard to get like a drawing done in 24 hours that I feel good about. Yeah, no problem. It seems like performance, at least right now, is comparable to the Mini 5, and hopefully I can get a bigger file size with many more layers and all going to really test it out and see if there's a difference. But I haven't really had any issues when it came to the Mini 5 or a previous iPad. The 2D drawing and design experience has been great all around. As far as recommendations go, I do like the Smart Cover Smart Folio. When I talked about the Mini 5, I really enjoyed using that because it keeps the whole package very small and it gives you a decent drawing angle, like a 30% angle, and then like that 65% angle for viewing videos and all. I think is a good compromise to keep things mobile, especially now that we have uh, the Apple Pencil kind of staying right there. This is going to be a great package to take with you on the go. The Mini 5 had the pencil loose. It was always loose in my bag or whatever. And even you can kind of lose it. I don't know where it is actually right now. So having it easily, attached to the device is going to be nice. I don't use any screen protectors. I just like the feeling of the Apple Pencil on the screen. And I've been a digital artist for 10 years now, so I think I'm kind of used to that plastic on glass feeling or plastic on plastic. But if you're not used to it, I'm sure that there's plenty of like textured protectors out there. I always find them to be a little bit of a pain to put on and take off. Let me see. There is this one thing that I got. They're called pen tips, and they're kind of a thing that you put on the end of the Apple Pencil, and it gives a little bit more like friction. And what I like about these is that you could put them on and take them off easily. So far for sketching, they've been nice. For lining, it gives me just enough of a different feeling that I'm not comfortable with it yet. It might still be a nice option, but I have my ways of doing things I'm used to for some time, so And then I also like to use a controller like this one that I made a video about previously, that it's kind of like a Bluetooth keyboard, and you could connect it with certain apps like this one. Art Studio Pro lets you input custom shortcuts, and like you could adjust the keyboard shortcuts and make use of a product like that. Yeah, I think unfortunately I don't use too many like 3D or sculpting or anything like that. The most intense apps that I would use are probably video editing apps, but you know, you might get a boost compared to the Mini 5. Yeah, I can't really speak too much on that from personal experience. I've done a little bit of 3D modeling on iPads, but not sculpting. So I'm sure sculpting is much more intense, processor intensive and all. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, that plastic on glass feeling is, you definitely get less noise with this. But it gives, I think maybe it even gives you a slightly smaller, more controlled line. It's hard to say. I'm still testing it out, and I do want to get a video on these out at some point. But I just like the option of taking it off very, very quickly compared to like a screen protector that is going to be on there semi-permanently. I think it's probably less expensive. I think this was about 20 bucks compared to some of those screen protectors. The higher end ones, I think, run about like 60 or more, if I'm not mistaken. I think for paintings, it's still going to be okay. I'm very used to this size though. I use the iPad mini 5 pretty much every day and got very used to it. And I also use smaller sketchbooks. Kind of a A5 size sketchbook was always my preferred size. So I'm a little bit more used to this, but I think with digital drawing and painting, you have the advantage of being able to zoom in versus, you know, you kind of have a set canvas when you buy a sketchbook or canvas or anything like that. So I found that even when kind of multitasking, if you bring up something else, oops, it's a much smaller screen now. Your area to work with is smaller, but it still offers the same functionality. And I found that using the 12.9-inch iPad Pro and the Mini 5 and other iPads, the drawing experience is pretty universal across all the sizes. It's just how much screen you have. So with a larger iPad, you could zoom in but still get a larger view of your canvas. Whereas with the Mini, you might have to really zoom in and lose kind of your perspective on other parts of the canvas. For painting, that, you know, for my kind of style, it's totally fine. I go in pretty close just to get small details. But for certain paintings, you might want to see more of your canvas to remind yourself about like the lighting and what else is going on for perspective and for just overall composition. For sketching, I think it's definitely good, and then I've made plenty of drawings, full-size drawings on large canvases on the Mini 5 and all, and it's been perfectly fine for me. So they're called pen tips. They're not leather. They're like a plasticky, oops, like a silicone style tip, and they just go right on the tip of the pencil. And I feel like it gives you a little bit more like texture, so it's not slipping as much. If you feel like your Apple Pencil slipping, this definitely reduces it a bit. You need to apply a little bit more force, and it has some drag on it. It's not quite the texture that you would find on like a Wacom Cintiq or something like that, but I just personally really enjoy as it is. I think it's a good experience for me, so I don't use too many accessories. I thought it was a nice option to try out, and it's something I want to really dedicate time and give the time it's worth to test it out on a full drawing before I give a full opinion. Thank you so much. Thanks for stopping by, and I'm sure that you can view the archive a little bit later on, and I'll have new videos out about the Mini and other things. I have some cool videos in the works, just not enough time to edit all of them, so I hope you look forward to that. And have a good night. Thanks. But it's not leather, it's silicone. And you do get quite a few of them. You get like 5. I don't think they have the option to buy one right now at the moment. I do find that it seems like a really nice thing to have for sketching, but when I was doing line work, it just might not be what I'm used to, and that's why I want to dedicate a full drawing to it. Oftentimes you might have it might feel different, which might give you it, let me see how I can say this, that when you try something new, it feels weird and it might not leave the best impression at first, but I think everything deserves to have its proper test and all to see if it makes a difference. And I haven't had the chance to do that with a full drawing. So far, my thoughts on using it for sketching have been nice, and for line work, I want to do a full thing before I really make a decision. And coloring as well. I haven't colored with them, so. But I'm also someone that tends to use things as they come. Like, I don't put on covers or cases or things like that too much. That's just my preferred way to use things. Sometimes when things don't work for me, I go and try to customize or make my own adjustments or seek out some kind of adapter or some kind of product to help with it. But I'm always happy when something works out of the box for me. And I hope everyone's been having a good day or night wherever you're at. Let me know if you have any questions, any kind of things that you want to know about art or the iPad Mini 6. Feel free to leave a comment. That's not what I wanted. And also, if anyone has any recommendations as far as videos they'd like to see or some kind of software that you've been using that you enjoy, I always love to hear about that as well. So far, it seems like the Procreate layer situation is the same as with the Mini 5, but like I said, things often take a few updates. It might take a few days to get a new update for Procreate to allow for the new iPads to take full advantage of their processors and all. And other than Procreate, I mean, I think Procreate Ibis Paint maybe is the only other app that has like a hard layer limit based on the hardware. On the Mini 5 with A4 sized canvases, anywhere from 300 to 350 DPI, I've never had an issue in like Art Studio Pro or Clip Studio Paint. I think in Art Studio Pro maybe I would get some slowdown for like when I had a lot of layers and I would transform a more complex section, then I would get some slowdown. But compared to, you know, even a laptop or whatever, a moderate laptop, the performance has been great. And Clip Studio Paint, sometimes when I was like, if I had many layers in a folder and I was trying to transform the full image, that would take maybe 10 seconds to confirm it. Or, you know, when you have kind of this happens sometimes when you go to transform, you would do this, but it would take a little bit of time for it to register. But I think it's more of a niche case, something that happens at the very end of the illustration. I could very well merge everything and make things a lot smoother, but I would always like to keep everything, as much information as I can. And thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna have more videos out soon, like first impressions and hopefully a review video pretty soon as well. As far as a scene, like a piece with scenery, I think the same thing goes for any kind of illustration. I don't do too much background work, and I've done a lot of sketches of stuff with backgrounds on the Mini, and haven't gone through with actually finishing it up. But more room, obviously, it gives you more area to work, especially when you're zoomed in. So, you know, let's say this is like a library or something. I think if you had a bigger iPad, you know, you can really draw these lines out, but I mean, the canvas is going to be the same. If you have an A4 350 dpi canvas on the Mini, or the iPad 12.9, or the 11-inch, or whatever iPad you have, it's going to be the same canvas. It's just how much you could view of it at, say, 100%. See, this is like, well, this is 176%. And if you were viewing it at 176% on the 12.9, then you'd be able to see past her head there or whatever. But you can always just zoom out. And I guess it makes it a little bit more difficult to add small details, especially depending on your brushes, your style, and the app that you're using. But it's very easy to just zoom in, take care of that, and zoom out. The one thing I would say, let me see, oh no, I'm using the 12.9-inch iPad Pro now to view this stream. But if you had another Mini, I mean, if you had a larger sized iPad, what's nice is you can have an extra window open. I wonder if this has, no, RStudio Pro does not have that, but in Clip Studio Paint, you can have a second window of the same drawing up on the screen at the same time. And what I like to do is have that as like a larger view of my canvas if I do have a background. So I have my more zoomed in view here, and then here in the little corner I'll have the like wide view of it. And a larger iPad allows you to do that a little bit more comfortably. Whereas the Mini, I don't really want to have a second window. I occasionally do it if I really feel like I need it, but it's a little bit more, you know, cramped. You feel like you have less room. You know, it's difficult to say. What kind of work do you like to do? What's your like discipline? What is the main thing that you do with your iPad? I think that kind of, depending on what you want to do, changes how I would answer that. Oh, that's not the layer, wrong layer. The split screen, I mean, it's not much better. I did it occasionally on the Mini 5, but it's going to be much more comfortable on a larger iPad. I'm going to compare, at the start of the stream, I had them side by side. I'm going to do that again just so that you can get a view for those that weren't here at the time. they're pretty close. Oh, let me zoom out a little bit. So they're pretty close. One thing that I noticed is that it looks like the Mini 6 has larger bezels on the left and right in this vertical view compared to the Mini 5. Obviously, the forehead and chin are going to be smaller on the Mini 6. But when you have your like hand resting, when you have your palm resting on here, you're not really going to see this. So for me, it's not a big deal. As far as the Mini 6, like the advantages, I covered it in kind of the pre-release video that I posted recently. The Mini 6, it seems like the USB-C port is going to be really nice for backing up and transferring files or connecting cameras, other things like that for creative people. The camera as well, if you want to take a video, like I always find myself going out with the Mini, but I might not want to take my camera, full-size camera with me. But you never know when something comes up, so having a slightly nicer camera is going to be great. And then the Apple Pencil 2, charging on here versus the Lightning port, which was always a pain, and having it connected to the Mini itself, like I can just take this in my hand with the cover once it comes out here in Japan. I can just take this with me down the street to a cafe and feel fine about it. And I would do that a lot with the Mini 5 too. I would say that unless there's huge performance differences, which I'll try to test out as best as I can, but iPads have always been great for 2D illustrations, and like I felt perfectly comfortable doing lots of different things on the Mini 5, so I feel like the Mini 6 is just going to be an extension of that with a few nice features. Whether it's worth the upgrade or not, it's hard to say. I think that this model is probably going to be around for a long time. This was about 2 years, maybe a little bit more, that we had the Mini 5. And I was saying earlier that I don't know if we're going to have a Mini 7 necessarily. We might have some kind of like in between a phone, like a larger iPhone that's more of this, maybe folding or whatever Apple comes up with, but we might not have a Mini 7. We might just have something that fills this space, but is a different device. Now, if you already have a Mini 5, if you're comfortable using it, so far it doesn't seem like there's much of a change. Even the screen size, I mean, if you take a look at it here, maybe I gotta pull this up just a little bit to get it more even, because you lose that forehead and chin, you know. But it's not a drastic size difference when it comes to the screen. The performance might be slightly different, but so far I haven't had too much of a difference just sketching. We'll see with the full illustration, but if your work is, if it's possible to work on the Mini 5 doing whatever type of thing that you do, and you don't have lag or crashes or whatever, then it's probably best just to keep it and use it for as long as you can. I wanted the Mini 6 just because of that USB-C, the camera, and the pencil, and maybe some other features we'll see in the future. And you know, I do this channel, and it's good to keep up to date and all, but I don't know. I mean, I like the design as well. This feels like a really nice kind of what I've always wanted from a portable tablet. And it's a very elegant solution compared to this much older design, but I don't think that's something that really comes up when you're actually in the middle of a big project, you know, when you're actually drawing. If I like hid the screen, you know, of both of these and used it, would I be able to tell the difference? I don't know. And I think the same thing goes for like the 12.9-inch 5th generation iPad Pro. If you did a blind test and gave me like a 2018 iPad Pro and the 2021 iPad Pro, I doubt that I would be able to tell the difference just from performance and screen without them like side by side or whatever. The performance has been quite good for many years now, and unless you have a very specific niche case of you know, certain workflow, certain app, or in the case of the Mini 6, that compatibility with certain devices of USB-C. I think that's a big difference. If the Mini 5 had USB-C, I don't even know if I would have upgraded, honestly. That USB-C is a big deal, I think. Not only because I can take one cord or one charger for many different devices, but connectivity of drives, cameras, other equipment, faster charging, faster transfer speeds. And even like the Apple Pencil 2, I haven't noticed any improvement as far as like drawing, like accuracy or speed or anything like that. I have not noticed anything side by side. I've been using the Mini 5 with the 5th generation iPad Pro pretty consistently and never noticed anything. And now using the Apple Pencil 2 on the Mini 6, it just feels exactly like the Mini 5 when I was using it a few days ago. Of course, like I said, you get this button shortcut on some apps, not every app. And that's a nice touch for drawing on the train, drawing on public transportation, or on the couch, but you know, a lot of times I'm using a keyboard or this kind of thing, so I'm not using this as much as other people might. And then one other thing to consider, I was talking with someone on a previous video that they were interested in the Mini 5 or 6. Like they have an iPad, like a 2020 or 2018 iPad with the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. And they were interested in the Mini 5 because it was more in their budget, and they weren't sure what to do because the Mini 6 would be much more expensive. But in the end, if you have to buy the Apple Pencil 1 for the Mini 5 now, you know, it adds maybe anywhere from $50 to $100 depending on your location and whether you're willing to buy it used or not. And if you already have an iPad, a larger iPad, then the Mini 6 might be able to kind of, if you spend a little bit more, it might be a better deal for you in the end. And if not, I think that the Mini 5 is probably going to be a spectacular deal for those that want a budget portable device, because it was still very powerful, and if you're willing to compromise on some of those things, like the charging or rather the connectivity, it's not that big of a deal to carry around a lightning cord with you. But more the connectivity for transferring files and all. Especially if you don't have a Mac or like a cloud storage account, it can be such a huge pain to take files off your iPad if you don't have USB-C. And I hope I get that smart cover pretty soon too. One other thing, that the camera does have a bump here, and I thought it would give some wiggle, but so far, you know, doesn't seem to be that apparent. The smart cover seems like it kind of balances it out, and we also don't have magnets on this side, it seems like. So no magnets on that side. The magnets are going to be on the back, I guess, for that cover. And we got to see, maybe there's going to be a nice cover with a little keyboard. It might be an interesting thing to do. I'm also going to get the, I have the GPD Win Max 2021. I ordered it on their crowdfunding, and it hasn't come in yet, but I think it's going to be a great compliment, just like the P2 Max video I did. I'm happy to be able to do kind of a updated version of that video when that GPD comes in the mail. Yeah, the camera, the bump is not, you know, the camera's not a huge deal. I do appreciate a better camera. Like one thing, also that I didn't mention in my pre-release video where I mentioned the camera, is it's nice to have a viewfinder that's larger. Like when you're trying to film something on the phone or take pictures or whatever, it's nice, but having this slightly larger screen, or not slightly, I mean, it's kind of like twice the size of a phone, it lets you really get a nice impression of what you're actually going to be filming and viewing, like later when you make a YouTube video or whatever. Um, but it's not like the end of the world, or it's not a make all, or it doesn't change my decision too much, but I do appreciate it because I carry this around probably more than my phone sometimes. And you can get cellular connectivity with it, which could be a good option for you. I never had the iPad mini 5 get too hot. I can't speak so much for the mini 6. Let me see if I can bump up. All right, we've been on full brightness and I have a video light on, so it's pretty hot in this room to begin with, and it doesn't feel too hot right now. We'll see with Clip Studio Paint or something with a few hours of a large file and see if that affects it in any way, but so far, so good. Yeah, they might, I mean, that's, they switched it to the full back cover. I mean, in a way, it doesn't even matter what color you get, because if you get one of those smart folios, the smart folio is going to be the thing that decides the color. But I wanted space gray. And I mean, it'll be nice to see what the quality of the camera is. I'll have to go test it out at some point. I'm sure it's always like the iPhone from a year or two ago, It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's something I definitely don't mind. Like, it's a good benefit for many people, I think, to have it. Because even if you have your phone, if you have two devices, if you're trying to do YouTube videos and you have two devices and you find yourself in a nice location, you could set up both devices and take a nice video with two different angles and all that, so always nice to have. But it is a little disappointing, especially with the loss of the headphone jack and other things like that. The design may look nice, but it's not always beneficial to the user. Like, one of the biggest disappointing things for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro was I literally went to a cafe with a full setup like this to do video editing, and I sat down and realized there was no headphone jack, which, like, duh, Apple hasn't had a headphone jack for a long time in many of their products, but it's a pro device. I wanted to use it for professional video. You think it would work, and you just can't really use Bluetooth headphones for that. There's enough lag that you're not going to have a good time editing. And if you're out and about, you don't want to have the actual speakers blaring, and it's hard to connect multiple things, like having headphones and charging without the right adapter. So stuff like that has been very frustrating. I did like with the Mini 5 that I could hook up, just easily attach a mic or some headphones, watch a movie, listen to a podcast, or record some audio. Even for this live stream, I could, I miss the days where we could charge a device, use the camera, and plug in a mic or headphone all at the same time. Now it seems like a little bit more complicated. No problem. If you have any other questions, let me know and I'll try to answer them. And I'll give more kind of an in-depth, thought out, not review, but I'll have a video that's like a first impressions out soon, and then after that I'll have a proper review within, maybe a month or so, because I do like to take my time and really test out the device, have a proper opinion, and then find the time to make a nice video. Well, I'll probably use this for the thumbnail of that first video. I already filmed some nice stuff on the way to picking up the iPad, and now with the stream and all, it'll be nice. I'll have a quick turnaround for once. Let's see what colors the iPad mini is available in, and we'll color this girl with that. Space gray purple starlight. Kind of hard colors, I think, to use for a drawing. They're very muted. Maybe some combination of this. Like, something like that. What color are the cases too? The cases are a little bit more vibrant. But I just want a black one, just simple case and all. Probably good. I like that color combination. So I think I might start wrapping things up pretty soon. I'll probably take this. One more thing that I really wanted to cover. I was testing out Clip Studio Paint, and it was I was having some weird problems where sometimes when I would go into the menus, it would it would hang on that screen. Let me see if I can try to replicate it. Like the actual drawing felt smooth. Here, one thing that. So here, I tried to add a brush and it's just hanging on there and I can't do anything. So drawing seemed to be fine, but kind of accessing certain functions that would bring up a pop-up menu seemed to be the culprit. Like kind of turning it off for a second and then reopening it, it would allow me to at least see something else, but then this is still stuck on it, so it might just need an update. I'm not sure. It works fine on the mini and it works fine on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro seems to have some difficulty here, but we'll see. Hopefully I could get it running because I love Clip Studio Paint for coloring and all that. But I guess it's something to mention in the review if nothing comes up. I don't know, has anyone heard of those issues with the Mini or any current recent releases? I updated everything. Maybe I'll try to uninstall it and reinstall it. But just a really bizarre, error or something. Like here it's hanging again there. But I think it's more of a software thing, because I was drawing in Clip Studio Paint just fine, and there were no issues. It was just kind of when it came to saving and all. Stuff like this seems very nice. I'm missing a lot of my tools because I haven't been able to access them like that. Or redo my keyboard shortcuts, things of that nature. I haven't been able to access really, but we'll see how things go. See here again, I was able to get the pen pressure settings to work sometimes, but not reliably. Like here it's open, but then I can't do anything. So I feel like there's some kind of issue going on. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to ask. I'll kind of stick around for a little bit just to answer some questions before heading out. Maybe it will give me an opportunity to use Art Studio Pro again. I haven't used it too much since my review video. But I feel like it's the underdog drawing app because it's really a fantastic app that deserves more attention. There's some things that I'm just not used to. That doesn't mean it's necessarily good or bad. It's just the way that the developers wanted to do it. And it takes some getting used to, but I think it's perfectly capable of taking on some serious projects. Hmm. And I guess I'll be putting up this sketch on Instagram or other places if you want to check it out in a little bit more detail and like nicer resolution actually on a screen compared to like a video of a screen. And then I'm going to get to work doing some lining and some coloring of this and putting out my first impressions within the next few days, hopefully. I might do another stream for other time zones, like my nighttime, or again, tomorrow at a similar time. So you could definitely come back and I'll have a little bit more of an understanding of the product and all. So any final questions from anyone? Sorry. No, I appreciate that. I will definitely try to get more live streaming into the schedule. You know, the iPad is a great tool for drawing. One of the more difficult aspects of it is kind of capturing video from it. For a long time, I would just use the screen recording functionality on the older iPads because apps might not have offered time-lapse replays or whatever, or even when you do have a time-lapse replay from Procreate or other apps, you don't always get the tools and other things that the artist is doing. So yes, it's nice to have it automatically in the background, but also it's nice to have a full view of the actual software for those that want to learn from those videos. And now we kind of get a nice balance of the two, and that's why I like having more storage options, so I can capture more video of the drawing process and things like that. The other thing that's going to be really nice about the USB-C is you could do USB-C to HDMI, and then maybe I could get a capture card and start getting the screen on my Windows machine, because it did not work out on my Mac. And you know, that's kind of the downside to these devices, is that capturing them for video and more specifically live streams is more kind of requires more equipment than I have, and it's a little bit more of a difficult process, but it's something that I want to get into, and hopefully I'll be able to do it. I mean, I really enjoy getting to draw and talk with people. It's much more fun than just drawing yourself, and it leads to some really interesting conversations, really interesting drawings, and I feel like I could kind of teach and talk more freely and just do different things on a stream, and I want to do more of it, but it takes time and investment and other things like that to really be at the quality that I like to have. But that's going to be it for now. I'm going to go ahead and show this really quick so everyone gets a nice view of it. And you'll be able to see it on Instagram and on YouTube shortly. So I hope everyone enjoyed the stream, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Thanks. Oh, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Skippen, and I'll be talking to you soon. See ya.